I first met Sam in 1970. I was the 31-year-old regional director of the Federal Economic Development Administration, responsible for all of the federal economic development programs in the 8 western states. My office was, because of Senator Magnuson, our office was in Seattle. One morning, my secretary brought me my normal 3x5 card that told me what I was supposed to do that day, and first thing, 9 o'clock in the morning, was Sam Volpentest. I said, "Who's Sam Volpentest?" And she said, "Well, I don't know, but Senator Magnuson's office made the appointment from Washington, D.C. And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting." So 9 o'clock comes along, and in walks this little wizened guy who was kind of looked to me like a cross. First thing I noticed was he was very old. And the second thing I noticed was that he kind of looked like a cross between a leprechaun and a Jewish rabbi. We shook hands, and he sat down, and we exchanged pleasantries for a while, and pretty soon he drew out a piece of paper from his pocket that had a list of projects he thought I'd like to fund in the Tri-Cites. And I hadn't been there very long, and I wasn't going to commit to any projects, particularly since I was a Republican appointee. And so we continued to exchange pleasantries. We shook hands, and he left. About 20 minutes later, the telephone rang, and my secretary buzzed through, and she said, "It's Senator Magnuson on the telephone himself." Well, I'd never talked to Senator Magnuson. And so I picked up the telephone, and I said, "Yes, sir, what can I do for you?" And he said, "I understand Sam Volpentest was just in your office." And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Give me anything he wants," and hung up the phone. Even in those early days, there were very few community leaders who spoke for the Tri-Cites. Just about everybody in the Tri-Cites either worked for the government or owed their livelihood secondhand to somebody who did work for the government. The community leaders that we had were interested primarily in saving Hanford and building. They did it out of a feeling of self-preservation. Sam Volpentest owned taverns. Glenn Lee and Bob Phillip owned a newspaper. Together, they wanted to make sure that their businesses survived. If Hanford didn't survive, their businesses didn't survive. And secondarily, they wanted the Tri-Cites to grow. In the 1990s, the Tri-Cites had grown. The concept of an integrated nuclear industrial park at Hanford had gone away. The environmental movement had Sam and his friends ran the community top down. That wouldn't be possible today. Today you have a lot more people, a lot more voices, a lot more demanding to be heard, and the community has to accommodate that. So I don't think it's possible for somebody like Sam to be the major spokesman for the community in the way that he was during the 1960s. Sam always said that the community needed to speak with one voice. That was true so long as the voice was his. When the idea of consolidation of the 3 communities came up in the early 1980s, there was a vote, and somebody came to Sam to ask him, "Well, do you think the vote's going to pass?" And Sam said, "No." He said, "There needs to be a whole lot more deaths than there has been so far." Well, it didn't happen then, and it didn't happen when the subject came up again in 1984. And there have been a lot of votes since then that suggest that that parochialism between the 3 cities and between the 2 counties hasn't entirely gone away. But what I do sense is that there's a lot more willingness to cooperate in things short of consolidation. The 3 cities are cooperating on a number of different activities, including public works, public safety, economic development. And there's also activities that have been going on, like the Three Rivers Community Roundtable, which tracks various community-wide initiatives that have worked and are working. Of the effort to diversify the community were some very unusual leaders, like Sam Volpentest, like Glenn Lee and Bob Phillip at the Tri-City Herald. Their efforts really were based on their fear that if they did not diversify the economy, that everything that they had built, all of their investments through their own effort, would be lost. It's what happened is an excellent example of a theory that I have always had, that communities grow as a result of a happy coincidence of good economic times, of excellent planning, of good vision, and of excellent leadership who can take advantage of that vision. And Sam Volpentest was that kind of a person. He was the right man at the right place at the right time. Sam's story allowed me to combine four of the things that I like most in life: biography, history, politics, and economic development.